Hello and welcome to the Bible Difficulties and Answers podcast. I'm your host, Lance Smith. Today, we're delving into a fascinating aspect of biblical research, the use of various scientific disciplines to support biblical narratives. However, our exploration today isn't without its critics. Specifically, we're examining the longevity of the ancient patriarchs mentioned in the Bible, some purportedly living for over 900 years. Scholars have differing perspectives on this matter. Some contend that these ages are symbolic rather than literal, while others propose theories such as a canopy of water or delayed human maturation to explain the extended lifespans. Additionally, some argue that subtle biochemical changes in cellular chemistry could also contribute to prolonged lifespans. As usual, I'll present a number of different opinions from my research and conclude with my own thoughts. Show notes will include links to all we discuss. Are you ready to dive in? All right, let's learn together. Today we'll focus on Genesis 5:5 from the New Living Translation, very short verse. Adam lived 930 years, and then he died. All right, the problem, as always defined by the Big Book of Bible Difficulties, is this. Adam lived 930 years. Methuselah lived 979 years, as we see in Genesis 5:27. And the average of those who lived out their normal lifespan was over 900 years of age. Yet, even the Bible recognizes that most people live only 70 or 80 years before natural death occurs. And we see that in Psalms 90, verse 10. Now, the solution for the Big Book of Bible Difficulties, so this is kind of a long one, is as follows. First of all, the reference in Psalm 90 is to Moses' time, around 1400 BC. And later, when longevity had decreased to 70 to 80 years for most, though Moses himself lived 120 years, according to Deuteronomy 34:7. Some have suggested that these years are really only months and would reduce the 900 years to a normal lifespan of 80 years. However, that is implausible for two reasons. First, there is no precedent in the Hebrew Old Testament for taking the word year to mean month. Second, since Mahalalel had children when he was only 65, according to Genesis 5:15, and Canaan had children when he was 70, Genesis 5:12, this would mean, if we follow that years actually mean months, that they were less than 6 years old, which is not biologically possible. Others suggest that these names represent family lines or clans that went on for generations before they died out. However, this does not make sense for a number of reasons. First, some of the names, like Adam, Seth, Enoch, and Noah, are definitely individuals whose lives are narrated in the text. Second, family lines do not beget, more commonly phrased, the father of, family lines by different names. Third, neither do family lines die, as each of these individuals did. Fourth, the reference to having sons and daughters does not fit the clan theory. Consequently, it seems best to take these years as years for several reasons. First of all, life was later shortened to 120 years as a punishment from God. We see that in Genesis 6:3. Second, lifespan decreased gradually after the flood from the 900s to the 600s to the 400s to the 200s, and this is from multiple scripture references. Third, biologically, there is no reason humans could not live hundreds of years. Scientists are more baffled by aging and death than by longevity. Fourth, the Bible is not alone in speaking of hundreds of years lifespans among ancients. There are also records of ancient Greek and Egyptian times that speak of humans living hundreds of years. Close quote. All right, as you can see, even the comprehensive resource, the Big Book of Bible Difficulties, presents multiple explanations for this issue. After thorough research, I've uncovered some intriguing possibilities. However, I'm hesitant to provide a single definitive answer to this question, so you'll need to consider several potential explanations. Now, to ensure clarity throughout this podcast, we'll be using a term called antediluvian. Let's define it. According to the Oxford Dictionary, antediluvian refers to the time before the biblical flood. So when we mention antediluvian, we're referring to the era preceding the flood. Now, I find it intriguing that the New Revised Standard Version commentary aligns with other ancient texts in noting similar lifespans. It states, ancient Babylonian lists similarly recount a series of pre-flood heroes, each boasting remarkably long lifetimes. So credit to the New Revised Standard Version for this observation. The MacArthur Study Bible introduces what's commonly referred to as the canopy theory, echoing what I had learned previously. It suggests these are literal years marking an unusually long lifespan, which is attributed to the pre-flood environment, where the earth was supposedly covered by a canopy of water. This canopy filtered out the ultraviolet rays of the sun, creating a more moderate and healthier condition, close quote. All right, expanding on this idea. As we discussed earlier, this canopy served as a shield against the sun's ultraviolet rays. However, during the Great Flood, this protective layer dissipated, leading to a decline in lifespans. That said, religious scholars don't universally agree on the idea of ancient individuals living to be 900 years or more. Dr. William Lane Craig is one who does not defend the 900-year time span of life. From his Defenders Podcast Series 3, Excursus on the Creation of Life and Biological Diversity, Part 16, Genealogies in Genesis 1 through 11, Dr. Craig says, some things are incredible, I think. It is unbelievable that I think the ancient author would have thought that people like Methuselah lived for 900 years. Moreover, remember the point that I make that taking them literally causes these really odd consequences like Shem outliving Abraham for 35 years. The fact that the ancient Jews felt uncomfortable about this is evident in the fact that the Samaritan and Septuagint text of the Pentateuch, these numbers are changed so as to make them less awkward. The ages are reduced. Scholars agree that the Masoretic text, the one that we have our translation based on, is probably the right text. It's original. But nevertheless, these other texts, the Samaritan and the Septuagint, show how uncomfortable ancient Jews felt about the length of these lifespans. So it's not just incredulity, it's also that they also produce these sort of chronological anomalies that just don't seem right, close quote. Now, I think we covered this argument extensively in last week's podcast. The lists are structured symmetrically with the other text in the Bible, so we don't encounter the problem of overlapping patriarchs, which would neither be reasonable nor evident. Another individual taking issue with the long lifespans is Trent Horn from his article, "Do People in the Bible Really Live to be 900 Years Old?" After he discusses a list of kings from ancient Sumer, he says, since historians don't discount the existence of these kings despite their inflated lifespans, we should not discount the trustworthiness of the Bible just because it describes people with similar lifespans. These descriptions may be non-literal ways of ascribing greatness to someone, or as Scott Hahn and Curtis Mitch say, this may be simply a literary technique used to assert the remarkable age of the human race itself, close quote. Now, there are scholars who take a literal view of the lifespan as detailed in the Bible. Dr. Georgia Purdom and Dr. David Minton from a May 27, 2010 article, Ancient Biblical Lifespans, Did Adam Live Over 900 Years? Says, and I quote, extra biblical evidence to support the long lifespans of the people in Genesis is found in the Sumerian king list. This list mentions a flood and gives the length of the reigns of the kings before and after a flood. There are many striking parallels between the Sumerian king list and Genesis, such as a flood event, numerical parallels between the pre-flood biblical patriarchs and the antediluvian kings, and a substantial decrease in the lifespan of people following the flood. One author on this subject concludes, it is highly unlikely that the biblical account was derived from the Sumerian in view of the differences of the two accounts and the obvious superiority of the Genesis record, both in numerical precision, realism, completion, and moral and spiritual qualities. It is more likely that the Sumerian king list was composed using Genesis for numerical information. Obviously, the book of Genesis would only be used if the person writing the list believed it to be a true historical account containing accurate information. All right, moving on to Christopher Eames from his August 2nd, 2020 article, Biblical Longevity of the First Humans. He says, it's possible that the antediluvians reached sexual maturity much later in life. After the flood, together with the massive drop in age, there was a corresponding drop in the age in which humans are described as bearing children. The first described age of reproduction for someone born after the flood is Arphaxad, son of Shem, who conceived at the young age of 35. And of course, this number continued to drop, close quote. All right, this is a fresh perspective for me. I hadn't thought about the idea of delayed sexual maturity as contributing to longer lifespans before, but it's not a scholarly argument without additional proponents. Jake Hebert, from his December 29th, 2023 article, Living to 900, says, years ago, creation researchers Don Patton and Greg Beasley deduced that great longevity should be associated with larger body sizes and delayed maturation. Fossil animals and plants are generally larger than their counterparts today. This is true not just for extinct giants like the dinosaurs, but for extant creatures such as oysters, camels, kangaroos, and penguins. Scientific literature includes evidence that at least some fossil creatures were larger, took longer to mature, and lived longer than their present-day descendants. Given this linkage between body size, longevity, and rate of maturation, it's possible that this was also true for pre-flood and immediate post-flood people, animals, and plants, close quote. So we return to the fundamental question. How could people have lived over 900 years? The answer appears to revolve around the occurrence of the Great Flood. This isn't solely a concept within the Judeo-Christian culture. Other cultures also recant tales of ancient individuals living for hundreds of years or more. Thus, there must have been something different before the Great Flood that fundamentally altered humanity. Prior to the flood, it's conceivable that a canopy of water shielded the earth from ultraviolet radiation, thereby delaying the normal aging process. Additionally, there could have been larger body sizes and delayed maturation, which aligns with the biblical narrative of childbirth. Moreover, various scientific theories propose additional reasons why ancient humans may have experienced longer lifespans. Dr. Hugh Ross lists and explains from his article, Long Lifespans, Adam Lived 930 Years and Then He Died, a number of theories in great detail. Please take some time to read this article in depth. It's on the show notes. A quick summary of his article says, and I quote, recent advances in the biochemistry of aging provide answers to these seemingly intractable problems. Scientists have uncovered several distinct biochemical mechanisms that either cause or are associated with senescence, that's aging. Even subtle changes in cellular chemistry can be responsible for aging, and in some cases can increase life expectancy by 50%. These discoveries point to a number of possible ways that God could have allowed longer lifespans and then altered human life expectancy simply by tweaking human biochemistry. The recent progress of research in the biochemistry of aging, along with the cosmic radiation caused by the Vela supernova eruption, quick aside, we did not cover this explanation in today's podcast due to time constraints, make the long lifespans of Genesis 5 and the decrease of human lifespans at the time of the flood scientifically plausible, close quote. Back to me. I find the theories presented regarding extremely long lifespans, up to 900 years or more, quite convincing, and I'm inclined to agree with them, be it either the water canopy, delayed maturation, advances in biochemistry, etc. Okay, looking ahead to our next podcast, we'll delve into another fascinating Bible enigma, one that I personally find intriguing to solve. Were the sons of God mentioned in Genesis 6:2 angels who married women? I anticipate that next week's discussion may tie into the topics we've explored in today's podcast. You may reach us at our website, BibleDifficultiesAndAnswers.podbean.com, or you may reach out to me directly at our email address, BibleDifficultiesAndAnswers@gmail.com, with any questions, comments, concerns, bits of righteous indignation, or just to say hi. Also, please like and subscribe to this podcast. Tell a friend or two as well. And also write a review and give it a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, or any of your podcast venues of choice. It really does help get the word out about the most amazing book ever written. Again, I'm Lance Smith. Until next time, I wish you good luck, good health, and God bless. So long, everybody.